Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, October 5th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP, joined this morning by Phil Wegman, our White House reporter, sitting in for Carl Cannon. Phil, good morning to you.
Morning.
So let's talk about Joe Biden and his agenda, which took a hit at the end of last week. Nancy Pelosi could not get the votes to put those bills on the floor of the House of Representatives. President Biden is in Michigan today trying to sell the merits of his spending plan. What's the state of play right now, Phil, in Washington among the warring factions within the Democratic Party? Are they going to be able to get this done by the new deadline, which is now October 31st?
President Biden certainly hopes so. He's on the road right now to sell his agenda, to sell some of the items that are going to be in this reconciliation package. And that comes at a moment when in Washington, D.C., you have progressives and moderates who are going to be going to war over what actually makes it into the package. Right now, both camps sort of realize that the $3.5 trillion, that top line number is just not in line with reality. It's going to have to come down lower in order to win over both Sinema and Manchin. And so something's going to go to the chopping block. Whether that's the expanded child tax credit, whether it's some of these community college benefits, we don't know yet. We're trending in the right direction for Democrats to achieve something, but we don't know the top line number, and we don't know exactly what's going to be in the bill. And that might make it a little bit difficult for the president when he's on the road today trying to sell this bill.
Now, he gave some remarks yesterday on the debt limit and basically chastised Republicans and told them to get out of the way so Democrats could get this done and don't filibuster. But he took questions after that, Phil, and he was asked specifically about Manchin and Sinema and refused to sort of throw them under the bus. He said, look, I have 48 votes. We need 2 more votes in the Senate, and said it's a process, and said, we're going to continue to work it out. And he was optimistic they'll eventually get something done. But you also had, progressives are continuing to say that, look, this stuff has to be done in tandem, that these bills have to be passed at the same time. They have made sure that they're going to be coupled. And that obviously complicates things. So is there, Kyrsten Sinema is facing a lot of pressure from the left. She's been, followed into the bathroom by activists who are heckling her. On the airplane back to Washington in the D.C. airport this morning, we saw videos of her. So she's under a lot of pressure. Do you think that those two are going to come along eventually?
I imagine that both Sinema and Manchin will agree to some number that is much lower than $3.5 trillion. I don't know what that is exactly. It's interesting that for the longest time, the big complaint against Manchin has been that he won't tell the rest of Washington, D.C., what exactly it is that he wants. And then last week, we find out that he and Majority Leader Schumer sort of had huddled together and signed some sort of not exactly binding document, which says that says Manchin will only support up to $1.5 trillion. We're going to see where this thing ends up. But you're absolutely right. Progressives won a tactical battle last week when they forced Nancy Pelosi and President Biden to essentially weld together the reconciliation package with the bipartisan infrastructure package. Now that those two pieces of legislation are essentially linked, they're going to get votes around the same time. That's a win for progressives because they wanted both to go through. At the same time, though, that creates a significant trust deficit among people like Manchin, Sinema, and moderates in the House, because they know that their progressive colleagues lobbied against a piece of legislation that everyone supported just so that the reconciliation bill would definitely get a vote. I think it's going to be up to Biden and others to win back the trust of some of these moderates so that compromise is possible. And that's why I think the president is not going after Manchin and Sinema as aggressively as his progressive allies would like him to.
All right, Phil, last question. You've been sitting in these briefings every day at the White House. And yesterday there was a back and forth between Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki when I guess Ducey's question was something along the lines of, does this plan cost nothing or is it free? Jen Psaki continues to say, when she's asked about this, let's not dumb this down. Let's not dumb this down for the American people. and then continues to insist in the next breath that this plan costs zero, adds nothing to the deficit, which a lot of folks have pointed out is stretching the truth if we're being kind. But they're sticking to that line. Does that seem to be working? I mean, certainly the parts of the plan in general are fairly popular, broadly popular with the American people. But do the American people, are they really going to believe that all of the things in this bill, all of the spending programs really cost nothing?
Right now, Washington, D.C. is promising to do what they do best, which is spend a lot of money. The president is promising the moon and more, because even that is infrastructure at this point. And I think that what is happening currently is you have politicians who are making a lot of promises, including this promise that the infrastructure package is going to cost zero because we're just going to take all of the money from the wealthy and from corporations to pay for it. I think that right now, this sort of rhetorical posturing, maybe the American people aren't paying as close of attention because they're living their lives and they're not, watching CNN and Fox, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. They're actually doing normal everyday things. But if, this bill gets passed, and if as a result of these rounds of taxes combined with all of this new spending, there's inflation and there's a slump in the market, then I think people are going to point back and say, oh, actually, there was a cost to this. And I don't think that you are being entirely forthright with us.
All right, we will leave it there for this morning. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics.
And I'm Philip Wegman. This has been the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, October 5th.